press. Cardi don't need more
Must be that whip that I ordered.
Many of us manage a lot of things. We manage our daily lives, manage households, and some of us even manage businesses. But imagine managing the entire village of Wellington. Wellington is known for being the winter equestrian capital of the world, having the largest horse show anywhere, and home to celebrities like Vanilla Ice, Bill Gates, Michael Bloomberg, Tommy Lee Jones, and more. Today, we're finding out who is Jim Barnes, the man who manages many. So, Jim, tell us, what are some of the responsibilities of being the village of Wellington's manager?
That's a loaded question. So there's a lot of different things that go into it. The biggest thing is for a lot of folks who maybe are from Florida, some folks aren't from Florida, it's different in a lot of different communities, but in Wellington specifically and a lot of cities within the county and as well as really South Florida in general, the managers essentially are the CEO or mainly the point person when it comes to the operations of a community, whereas the elected officials really set the vision and the policy, and the manager executes. So basically, for the most part, everybody that works with the Village of Wellington in terms of employees, team members, et cetera, report directly to the manager, and the manager reports to that elected body, whether it's a council, commission, what have you.
Okay, so is it safe to say you kind of have a pulse on everything that happens in Wellington, or try to at least?
Yeah, at least definitely try to, and I'm supposed to. Some days that's easier than others.
Okay, so how would you describe Wellington to folks that were maybe looking to move here, they've never been here? I mean, you know, if you read about us online, it could start to feel like we're only a horse country.
That's true, and probably equestrian activities, equestrian sport, the whole equestrian lifestyle certainly defines a lot of what Wellington is, but there's still so much more and a whole lot more. And while today it seems like equestrian's been in the fabric of Wellington since day one, it actually happened after Wellington was originally developed. Wellington originally started out as a suburban bedroom community, which it sort of still kind of is, except that we've grown quite a bit since its original inception in the late 70s as a planned unit development in the kind of, at that point, western reaches of Palm Beach County. Now we're pretty much smack dab in the middle of the county, and pretty much, I think, the gateway going east for communities west of us, and the gateway for folks coming from the east that are going to some of the more western communities. And generally, you know, Wellington is about, depending on which number you look at, anywhere between 61, 62,000 residents, sometimes some numbers as high as 64, 65,000 residents. And that's year round. That doesn't count the seasonal influx of residents and
what does that
workers
bring?
that we see. Easily, well, if you think about it, I think in any equestrian season, we might see anywhere between 10,000 horses come through the village. Mm-hmm. And for those horses, you've got riders that may be seasonal that aren't here year-round. You've got folks that work in the equestrian industry that are seasonal that aren't here year-round. So certainly several thousand more just to be part of that equestrian sport that's here generally from the end of the year, maybe January till about April or May.
Yeah, we definitely feel it too. Like locals feel it. We'll feel the influx of traffic, especially when my kids were little in daycares. You'd see like there were more kids added to the roster.
Yeah, for sure. I think you definitely see it in the stores. You see it in schools. You see it in your neighborhoods, and certainly the businesses in Wellington welcome it because it's a big change, and many times makes that particular year during the season because of the increased business.
One of the things about Wellington that people tend to think is that it is priced out of market. There's not affordable homes here. That it's not. That it's all equestrian, and that's not true, is it?
That's not the case at all. In fact, I mean, notwithstanding, of course, the crazy housing market that we've seen everywhere, not only in Wellington, but the county, South Florida, the nation. Notwithstanding that's happened in the last couple of years, generally speaking, a large component of Wellington has a range of housing options, from single-family homes that really formed the backbone of Wellington when it started. It's basically a suburban community where you had a lot of single-family homes that attracted young families to come out here for parks, schools, and the neighborhoods, to even some multifamily housing that still exists that actually, some folks know it, but some folks don't realize a lot of the older multifamily housing, whether it's the duplexes and the quads, the townhouses, what have you, served as the original transitional housing when folks were waiting for their single-family home to get built.
Oh.
So you have some folks that were waiting for a home, say whether it was in Sugar Pond or Greenview Shores or, some of the larger communities, stay in a townhouse because they were relocating for work or for some other reason and needed to be here, but their house wasn't ready yet because
Right.
Wellington was just developing back then, still unincorporated, not yet incorporated. We weren't a village, we weren't a town, we weren't a city, but we were a community. And that's how a lot of folks got their start, is to move into those multifamily units while their home was being built.
How long have you lived here?
So I moved to Wellington in 2005, but I've lived in Palm Beach County, generally in, the central part of the county since the late 70s.
Wow. So if you are new to Wellington or the Western communities, once upon a time, 441 was much less populated. I used to come out to 441 just to go to Faith Farm. I love a good thrift store and a second-hand store consignment shop, but wow, how much it's changed so much over the years, and built up.
For sure, 441 was pretty much it's a great barometer to measure kind of development over time.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons a lot of development took a while to actually start along the corridor was the limited traffic capacity on 2 lanes of roadway.
Yes.
So once 441 expanded, more communities were built, and over time those communities spawned more communities, and what we have now is what you see, where you have a lot of residential along the corridor. And then depending on how far south or how far north you go on 441, you start seeing some commercial as well.
It's very interesting because, you guys must take this into account when you're adding laws and doing traffic control. So in Wellington, we have horse crossing. We take it very seriously, right? It's totally frowned upon to speed around some of these roundabouts and these back roads here because the equestrians are out. They are riding. There's riding trails. Do you happen to know the number? I just researched this, but I forgot how many miles of riding trail we have in Wellington.
I do not have that number off the top of my head, and if I gave you one now, I'd probably be wrong in making it up. But it's a lot, and generally, whether it's improved, paved, or actual footing or grass riding trails, or in some cases we actually put asphalt millings down to have a more stable surface for the riding trail. You can technically get around the entire village boundary on a trail of some type.
Oh, that's so cool.
So in the village is roughly almost 50 square miles in size, so that's a pretty large area.
Yeah.
We have the benefit that we utilize a lot of shared trails with our canal rights of way. So when we have that situation, it allows us a little bit more room for the horse trails and multi-purpose paths. And then more recently, we really expanded our asphalt path network for golf carts.
Yes, the golf
runners,
carts are
bicyclists,
huge.
and everything else. So.
Yes. That's so cool that you take those things into account. It is truly an equestrian-centric community, but again, not limited to the
Correct.
equestrians. We enjoy polo. We go to polo. We've had a tent at polo for about 10 years. So I still can't tell you anything about the sport. I have no clue. I don't actually watch it. But my kids have grown up on the polo fields, So that becomes part of our traditions. How would you describe the culture of Wellington?
I think the interesting thing is over time, I think Wellington's evolved with the rest of the community, the rest of the county. So I think early on you had families generally moving to Wellington for the reason that I stated earlier. Great schools,
Yeah.
great parks, great programs, really a very great sense of community. And what's happened now is I think we're entering kind of, if rough numbers, maybe our 3rd round of families coming out. But at the same time, some of those original families that are out here, those kids have grown, they've moved on, some of them have moved back. In fact, we have a couple of council members that went to high school here, grew up here in Wellington, and they're back here with their families, serving their community. But now a lot of those folks who started here in Wellington continue to live here even as they age and are in retirement.
Right.
So that's what's evolved, is that rather than being so family centric, we really had to get the culture is one of inclusiveness, because we really got to address what families need, what older adults, seniors, boomers, what have you, and even at this point, Gen Xers that are aging out of the workforce but want to stay here. And we have to look at how we provide programs for them, how we provide amenities and facilities for them. So I think it's really one that we're trying to be as inclusive as we can be, also accommodating the changing demographic over time as the community, as the county has evolved. So has Wellington, and so rather than being largely, families and that are largely white, we have a cross mix of cultures that basically, again, allow us to look at what program we have to appeal to a diverse community, to make sure that we have something for everyone.
Right. And when Jim speaks about programs and services, you can find those online at wellingtonflorida.gov.
WellingtonFL.gov.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Sorry. I read that literally in my mind. I can see it because I've taken the classes. My kids have, gone to the different classes that are offered. Recently took a women's basketball. I joined.
Oh, great! You
basketball.
Signed up for that. We weren't sure how that was going to be received. We figured we'd try it out.
Whew, it turned into a little bit of like German football there, but it was fine. I survived one skinned knee, but that's about it. It was really a lot of fun. Some of the other fun and new things that are going on, the Lakeside Market, right? What do you have going on? Today's Friday. Like, what can people do on a Friday here?
Lakeside Market that starts basically in October and runs till April, and it's our reincarnation of the Green Market. We've had a Green Market in Wellington for the better part probably of, 15, 18 years, but we've tried to reinvent it a few different times, and what seems to work for us is this reinvention into more of an evening Lakeside
are an
market.
Evening, a later crowd. Wellington is a bit of a later crowd, aren't we?
Right. It's we have to come up with some different ways to appeal to keep the folks here and not cause them to have to want to go to Lake Worth or West Palm or Delray for some of those types of markets. And so what we capitalize on what we have that works, which is, Lake Wellington, which is a great overlook, great sunsets there. And now that we've, essentially redeveloped the entire town center area, we're taking advantage of that boardwalk.
So do you kind of know, like, if there's a big business coming to town, like, these things ahead of time, right? Like, we're talking about the big guns, not the little ones.
I'm going to say I should know. Sometimes there are going to be cases where we might be the last ones to find out.
No way.
And that's only because in some cases they like to go through a lot of their other due diligence before they get to the point of, usually, at some point, because we're not a heavy employment community the way some of the larger cities are, if somebody's relocating here, there's a lot of other reasons they're relocating. It's not because there's a huge business. Very small component
that is
of the uses are commercial. We're largely residential still.
Yeah.
So as a result, the last thing they're going to be doing is checking with us, because we're not going to be providing a whole lot of incentives or anything like that relocation-wise. It's more they're here for different reasons, and at that point they're looking at space or that kind of thing.
So then maybe you know the answer though. I have a question about Cooper's Hawk. Is that coming here?
Well,
can we confirm that right here now?
I think as far as we have, it's still it's still able to be confirmed. We have not heard otherwise. So it's proposed for the location, which some folks may have heard referred to as Lotus, and that's the project that is just north of Wellington Regional Hospital.
Yes.
And for the longest time, for those that drive up and down State Road 7, 441, it was the property that was undeveloped but had a large lake on it, a large retention area, and Bar Lake that was dug for fill for a lot of the projects in town. And but now that's been, if you've noticed, it's been cleared to some extent. Turn lane was put in on State Road 7, and they're actually going to be before council for some additional modifications to their approval. It is behind schedule. Everybody was ready and holding their breath for an opening this holiday season. That's certainly not going to happen, based if you've seen the site recently. And I think
people point fingers at the wrong people, right? Because sometimes they get upset with you guys.
Yeah, regardless.
Like, what is your level of involvement there?
We're kind of like the painters of the trade, because no matter how long the project takes, the painters get blamed for being late because they're the last ones in. So in most cases, while there might be some design delays or some other delays with other agencies, since we're the last permit before they actually turn dirt, we get blamed with the delay. But I think overall, I think we've certainly worked with them to expedite all their applications, and they've had a couple of pre-construction meetings just in the last month. So we're hopeful that by the end of the year, you'll see activity on the site
That's
again.
exciting.
Which would lead me to believe that they're going to definitely try and beat next season.
Okay.
You know, I'm being conservative.
Yeah, sure.
But,
Play it safe.
Right.
So what else can we expect in Lotus?
I
there?
think in the Lotus area, you've got the interesting thing is to accommodate the commercial and retail that's going to be going there, like the Cooper's Hawk, and I think the Lazy Dog Cafe, which is an interesting concept. I think they have one further north in the state. They have them all across. They have some in the Midwest and also in California. But basically, it takes the dog-friendly dining to a next level, so that, you know, while there are a lot of places that you can certainly sit outdoors with your dog, here you can do that indoor and outdoor.
They'll do well. That's
and
smart.
And they actually have a dog menu.
Oh.
So
Okay.
So it's almost one of those things that it's while you can certainly dine there without a pet, without a dog, it's encouraged.
Yeah, they're gonna do well. That'll
I
do
think
well.
those are two main of the dining establishments that are proposed there, and one of the early things they want to construct to be able to accommodate the demand and the traffic for some of the future development, whether it's some of the housing or some of the I think there's a daycare and that kind of stuff proposed, is a parking garage. So you'll see that going up. That might be one of the most visible things you see in the early part of construction.
Very interesting, especially when you think about our little village of Wellington, growing so much.
We're growing for sure.
That's, I'm sure you got your hands full. There's gonna be a lot to say on that.
And there's a future phase that's actually right at the property next door. So they will continue on with that project, with some additional retail and some additional housing.
Tell me about this John Bostic Sports Center. What's happening?
So that's a great project. I think it's actually the first time we've done a public-private, a true public-private partnership. Mr. Bostic is one of the locally homegrown talent. Went to Panther Run Elementary School, went to Polo Park Middle School, went to Palm Beach Central High School, graduated and played at the University of Florida and eventually in the NFL, and has lived in Wellington and continues to want to give back. Yeah. So it was his vision and his desire to try and certainly, be able to find a way to continue to give back, mentor kids more officially, whether it's teaching them about the sport, teaching them about other things you need to know to be able to succeed in the sport, for sure. Health and that kind of fitness type things, as well as how to manage their lives, their business, what have you, if you go to the next level. But at the same time, still find a way to also, you still have to make a living. Right. And you still have to have a profitable business model. So the model that he's looking at is one that provides high-level fitness training, health training for elite athletes, whether it be football, tennis, soccer, what have you, even equestrian.
How about just your competitive CrossFit or people them as well? Yeah,
I think so. So the project itself is kind of full service in terms of that high level elite training. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a accessible, for fee charge public type of gym facility, whether it's regular fitness, CrossFit, what have you. That'll be available as well. And then there's going to be a youth component, which I'm sure anybody who's in Wellington knows is a huge part of the market. In fact, one thing we looked at when we were doing some of our research and due diligence on these types of facilities is that even during the pandemic, during COVID, when a lot of things were shut down, youth sports continued to flourish and people traveled. Absolutely. While you couldn't necessarily travel on vacation to your traditional vacation spots, outdoor youth sports for baseball, soccer, football, softball continued. And that's a way that families still continue and decide to spend their disposable income. Wow. So there'll be a component that provides that kind of higher level training for elite youth athletes, but at the same time really wanting to also give back for those that maybe can't afford service.
So maybe a subsidized
type of scholarshiping kids
and
just giving back. So I think.
When do you think that's coming?
Well, if you've been on South Shore recently, you've noticed the construction fence up at the old Boys and Girls Club, which was what we call Wellington Community Park, but everybody refers to it as Old Boys and Girls Club because that's where the Boys and Girls Club was housed before it moved to its location on Wellington Trace. And And so they're hopeful that maybe by the early part of the year, January, they'd be starting with site
that's
work,
exciting.
demolition, and they hope to be done within, probably 18 months or so, 16 months.
Wow. Very exciting. A lot of new
Absolutely.
changes for Wellington. So for all the new people that moved here, there's so much to enjoy, so much to do. Definitely visit wellingtonfl.gov. Jim, the man that manages much, what would your kids say you do?
I'm not sure if they really know what I do, except I think it's funny. When I started in Wellington, one of the first things I did was Parks and Rec director. So I think in their heads, they always think I just manage the parks.
Okay,
that's
perfect.
What I do. So, and that's enough. That's a lot.
Thank you so much for
problem.
being here. Is there anything else you'd like
My
people
pleasure.
to know? Or?
No, I think the only thing is that I think for anybody that hasn't been to Wellington, come try us out. We have great programs. We have great facilities. We have a great community. And it's a great place to raise your family,
Yes.
as proven by a lot of the accolades we've received in the last several years, the most recent one being from Forbes. And
Wow.
we were number 8 as far as best place to raise your family,
Wow.
and the only community in Florida selected, and so one of 50 that were selected across the country.
Wait, I have a button for that. There's my button. Good job. That must feel good to
That's
be
a great
to
way.
led Wellington and get such accolades.
It's a community. I mean,
Yeah.
people aren't moving here, just because of the village staff. I mean, the village team is awesome, but it really does take a village. It's the
Yeah.
team at the village that works there. It's the community, the residents, all the community partners, the volunteers we have that are all our residents that volunteer for our programs.
Yes.
It takes everybody, and of course, without the vision of council, that a lot of these things wouldn't be possible. So it really does take everybody.
And to Jim's point, you don't have to live in Wellington to enjoy Wellington. So definitely come out. Lakeside Market will be there tonight. That's one of my new favorite things to do. And then, of course, getting ready for Polo Sundays that turn into Mondays.
Yeah,
I'm working on that.
The season is off to a great start. We've got a lot of programs
Yeah.
and events planned, and certainly the equestrian community is getting geared up for polo and dressage and 100 jumpers.
Well, thank you. I'm going to let him get back to managing this great place. Thanks
so
for
much.
being here.
Thanks for having me.